Welcome back, everyone, to Open Line. We are talking about Wall Street-backed real estate investment firms buying up single-family homes in Middle Tennessee, turning them into rental property. They're also buying up large tracts of land and building entire rental communities. The concern is that this impacts affordable housing at a time when we really need affordable housing in our area. We have with us Ken Chilton, a professor at TSU, Tanaka Vercher, Metro Council member. They have concerns about this, and let's go to the phones. Let's go to Jamal. Hello, Jamal.
Hi, Ben. How you doing? And thank you for your guest bringing the light to this. But this goes back way before this decade of what's going on in Tennessee. This is comparable to sharecropping and what Ford did in Detroit when they built company housing. And, you know, it's a way to just keep workers working and not owning anything. It's a slave mentality that the country, and if we don't go back to refocusing everything away from this country being controlled by corporations and big business and money and back to the American way, the only American way will be slavery for the rest of the country. Because if you don't own anything and can't own anything, where's the freedom?
Right. Yeah, we're talking about, I mean,
it's bigger than that.
It's the American dream. The American dream is you get to buy a house, you own the house goes up in value, and hopefully
the American dream is to be able to afford to buy a house. At minimum wage at $7 an hour in this city, and everybody fighting over a fair living wage. You'll never have a fair housing market if you can't have a fair living wage to go about.
Right. Okay. All right, Jamal, thank you. Thank you for that. So he's saying some pretty tough stuff there, but Dr. Chilton, what do you think about what he's saying?
Yeah, I see where he's coming from. Community is now commodities. They're traded on Wall Street, and that's what these industries are. A house is not someone's necessarily their residence. It's a revenue-producing asset. And in as much as that's the case, that's going to affect the quality of life in a lot of these communities. These companies have seen, and if you read their PR and investment reports, American Homes for Rent brags that they've got 10,000 lots already lined up, not just in Nashville, but in all their different markets for future single build-to-rent neighborhoods. This is nothing more than, and I think I've used the term before, the old pork bellies trading on the commodities market. That's what housing has become.
Wow. Okay. Do you want to say anything, Councilwoman, to what he said?
Yeah, he made a very valid point, and you know that's the other part of the equation as it relates to affordability in the city is talking about livable wages. So he made a very valid point. It's just we are in a vicious cycle as it relates to access for housing here in Nashville, and this new housing model isn't going to make it even easier for many to become homeowners.
No. Let's go to Rika. Rika is on the line. Hello, Rika.
How y'all doing?
Fine. What's on your mind?
I think it's a misconception because I think at first we need to define affordability because that is what's affordable to one person may not be affordable to someone else. And I'm in public housing, and I don't understand. If we can barely afford public housing, how can we afford $1,000 rent a month?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rika. Thank
housing, it varies from household size, and there are different federal guidelines that dictate what those thresholds are. I don't know them off the top of my head. But the housing that we're talking about, this is not considered affordable housing. This is considered, as I said, they're targeting households that have incomes in excess of $70,000 per year.
And what you were so concerned about, Councilwoman, was this land that where this most recent rental community was built, you could have built affordable housing there. That's a prime piece of real estate where affordable housing, in whatever affordable housing is, and that's a fair question from Rika, but affordable housing could have been built there, and that's not what happened. Instead, it's going to this, corporation. So let's go to Therese. Hello, Therese.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. So I'm listening to Dr. Chilton and Councilmember Vercher, and also trying to understand, since we're seeing some of our housing go corporate, isn't that also then taking away from some of the revenue in the city because they're not zoned as commercial? They're zoned as residential, so they're paying the corporations are paying a lower residential tax rate, property taxes on those properties. Isn't that a concern that we should have and something that zoning should consider when thinking about who owns this property and how they're utilizing the property?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Who knows about that?
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I think I may be wrong on this. I think they're paying single-family residential property taxes. However, I do know that there has been some legislation that allows REITs to classify properties to pay payments in lieu of taxes, larger chunks of money instead of paying individual property taxes to future developers and developments who develop as REITs as part of a kind of economic development strategy. That there was some legislation passed in the last session related to that.
And what about in the Metro Council side? Do you have the power to say they should be taxed a certain way, or what about that, Councilwoman?
So, Ben, we can definitely get that. So this isn't new as it relates to classification as to should you be paying the residential rate or should you be paying the commercial rate? We had this same dilemma as it related to short-term rentals. So, this is akin to that, but a little different. What it does, it just, again, it exposes how unprepared our policies and our practices at planning. We haven't kept pace with the trends. Again, this model, I believe that, when it was in its infancy, when they were purchasing a few homes in a subdivision, that was just them testing the waters as it related to certain cities' land development policies. And when they saw that there were really any challenges as it related to that, unless you moved into an HOA, now it's morphed into this. They'll just buy up an entire subdivision as their own and do with it, as they deem fit. So back to what the caller was saying, all of that will have to be part of the conversation, because you can't solve one end of this just by putting legislation in place to provide notice to a community, regarding a substantial change in concept. There's also an overall impact to the bottom line of the tax base here in the city too. And I don't know how this particular entity, how they're being classified as it relates to them paying property taxes to the city. I don't know if that's going to be residential or if they're going to be assessed at a commercial rate. I don't know.
And it's interesting how it has evolved, and we talked about that a little bit, how it's evolved. But Ken, you follow these. I mean, where do you think they're going to be in 10 years? What's their plan to be in 10 or 20 years? Do they ever sell all this? Do they ever dump all these houses back on the market? Or I mean, they're definitely assets. They may just keep, I don't know. Where do you think things go in 10, 20 years?
That's the great unknown. I know in the short term, based upon their earnings reports and their investment reports that they put out on their website, they see this as a growth industry. They see rentership and permanent rentership to be more of a normalized outcome for a lot of households because of a variety of reasons. I recently saw a report that just said that American Homes for Rent is a buy in terms of looking at their business model over the next 2 years. I see them growing in areas where land prices are cheapest. So if I was in Wilson County, other parts of Rutherford County, Maury County, you're starting to see growth in that area as well among these investors. If I was a leader in planning and zoning or an elected official, I would be paying attention to their plans in those areas because land is a lot cheaper there. And this business model, this sweet spot of $1,800 to $2,500, you can't get that buying land at the prices in certain parts of Nashville. So it's going to grow on the periphery and on the edge. Another part of their business model is focusing on school districts that are perceived to be higher quality than the urban school districts. So again, Wilson County, Sumner, Rutherford, and Maury.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll take some more calls. Charlene, others, hold on. We'll get to your call. Take a break. Be back right after this.